let's recall what a method is. It's at the very core of what it is that we're working with in coding. And I write a little comment here on the screen. A method is a modular instruction. Actually, let's make it a multi-line comment just so it's nice and clear all the way along here. And we'll close it off down here. Some do nothing more than print messages. Some can accept data to work with. Some return data after it gets processed. Some do all of the above, or in different combinations of things. So there's all sorts of different types of methods, but their basic structure is very much pretty simple to follow. Let me guide you through it. We begin by setting, typically for now, an access modifier called public. This means that every other class in our project is able to see it. If I made it private, I would limit it so that only the message maker could see this method, and my new class wouldn't be able to see it. I'll show you an example of this in a minute. For now, let's make this public. The next term that we're going to include is going to be void. For now, this means that this particular method doesn't return any information. It's kind of like in this scenario, these two scenarios. It either prints a message or accepts information. It doesn't return any data yet, so void. And then I give it a name. I'm going to have this be called say something nice, and then open and close bracket. My squiggly lines after it give me a space to put in the content or the actual kind of guts of what this method actually does. But here it's set up nicely. This is accessible everywhere. It doesn't return anything, and here's its name. What do I want this method to do? I want to say, "You're beautiful." I thank you myself. That's all this particular method is going to do. And it is now complete and created. Now, if I head back into my new class, before I created this message maker object, and before, when I typed it in and pressed dot, I only saw the pre-created Java methods. But now I see this bolded method, and it will be bolded if we create it in our own project here, called say something nice. And there's no information describing it because I didn't create any information. Don't worry about that. But if I hit enter and have that method placed in, now I'm actually running that behavior through this object. Let's see what happens when I press play. "You're beautiful" is printed. So I've now actually had two messages be printed to my console. Both of them don't actually exist anywhere in this initial main class. They're not here at all. These messages don't appear. They are information that's tucked away in this other class that I've made. The constructor prints the "I'm alive" message, and this first method prints the "You're beautiful" message. Let's do another method here. Public void, and let's go add. Now, I want this method to actually add numbers together for me. So I need to include a bit more information. And here's where the inside of these brackets comes into play here. I can actually allow my method, or require it rather, to have information be sent to it. So what I'm going to do for this method is I'm going to have two different pieces of information, num1 and num2. The way that I make these parameters is just like defining a variable. I say the type, and then I give it a name, comma, splitting up anything that's more than one entry. I could make as many of these as I want, but I only want two for now. And what this is going to do is just report the sum is, and then I'm going to add these together right here in this spot, which I can do just like so. This here, and maybe I'll put brackets just to make this really clear, is these two numbers are going to be added together and then concatenated to the string. So I should be able to see whatever the sum of a number I send this method is over here. So after we say something nice, let's now, if I type too fast, it actually doesn't pop up, add two numbers together. Num1, let's go with 5, and num2, let's go with 3. Now, if I run my program, the sum is 8. It actually performed the calculation properly and printed it out with a method that I made that accepts information. Okay, let's try a different type of method, one that prints something back. I'm going to have another method, and this time, instead of void, I'm actually going to return information. What am I going to return? Why don't I return a string message? And I'm going to say this is get random thought. Add a body for some content. And what I'm going to do here is, well, first notice there's an error. Missing return statement. I actually have to return some content to, well, whoever asks about this. But I don't have any content to return yet. So maybe what I'm going to do here is make a little bit of a algorithm that I'll do quickly. You can watch along if you want to work with it on your own. I'm going to make a randomizer. I'm going to import it into my project so that I have the randomizer accessible here. And I'm going to make a string array of a few different thoughts. I'm going to call this thoughts, and I'm going to initialize it right here with a few different strings. I'm going to say, what are some random thoughts? It's sure nice today. Just some kind of like nice small talky things. And let's make the second one be, I'm good. How are you? Maybe make the final one, huh, yeah, uh-huh, yep. Just kind of like, yeah, responding along, you're not really paying attention. And so which thought do I want to send back to the user? Well, I'm going to make another string called thought to return. And I'm going to set it to, well, which thought is it that I want to get? Well, I want to access this array of thoughts, but which entry do I want? I don't want 0 or 1 or 2. I want a random one of these. That's kind of the random thought idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go rand dot next int, and in it, I'm going to put in the number 3. The way that this particular method works is it gives me a random number between 0 and this number here. So since there's 3 entries in this array, and actually the better way to do this would be to actually say my thoughts dot length, so that I get the length of the array. So I'm getting a random entry from this array being assigned to thoughts to return. And now I can just return the thoughts to return string. So now that I've built this, and if you need to review this anymore, you can pause it and take a closer look at the code. But back over here, after I do that adding, I'm also now going to access this new method of mine called getRandomThought. And what is this going to do? Well, it's going to return a string. And let's just see for a sec that actually nothing shows up for it. And why is that the case? Well, this method is returning information, but I'm not doing anything with the information. It's just kind of getting returned and then nothing happens to it. So I could do something like this maybe. I could set a response string to be equal to whatever I get from the random thought. Or even better, let's just get right to the chase. I'm going to print out a message. I want to print out whatever that random thought is. So I'm going to tuck in the print around this getRandomThought method call through the messagemaker object. And now if I press run, I should see that at the very end here, I get, I'm good, how are you? Or if I run this again, maybe, let's see if I get lucky, I'm good, how are you? Okay, we got the same result, so it's not proving my case very nicely here. And, yeah, yep. So a different random response here. So I have a different type of method, one that returns information. Now, what if we did one that combines all these ideas together? Public, int, subtract, int num1, int num2. Let's just make this nice and simple. What I'm going to do is just return num1 minus num2. And pretty simple. But I have to include this data type int because I'm returning whatever integer is the result of this calculation. So I'm allowing this method to perform all of this algorithmic functionality for me, and then I can access it over here with dot subtract, and let's go 10, and let's go 3. But remember, since I'm returning the information, it's not going to show up automatically. So I want to system.out.print this, tuck it inside of here, and let's run this piece of code. Let's see what random thought we get next time. Maybe we'll unlock the third one. Sure is nice today. And 10 minus 3 is 7. So I suddenly have a whole bunch of different behaviors that this method maker class can work with. I have this add, I have this get random thought, I have this say something nice. And notice here that on the right hand side, it actually shows me what type of data is being returned. The say something nice just says a message. It didn't return anything. The add method printed out what it was added. It accepts some information. It lets us know what information is needed, 2 integers with the names that tell us what type of integers, or specifically in this context, what numbers I'm looking for. They don't return anything. But the random thought doesn't require any information, but it returns a string. And finally, our subtract requires information, and it returns a specific number. So many different types of methods that we can create depending on the needs of the context that we're working in. And now we've had a nice recap of not only how you make your own custom class with a constructor, but you also can make your own custom methods that can be accessed in other places to perform and work with the functionality that you've built in a modular way. Wow, so much that we can do at this point in time.